The Animal Storybook, edited by Andrew Lang. Cowper and Hares, by William Bingley. No one was fonder of animals, or kinder to them, than Cowper the poet, who lived towards the end of the last century. But of all creatures, he loved hares best, perhaps because he, like them, was timid and easily frightened. He has left a very interesting account of 3 hares that were given to him when he was living in the country in the year 1774, and as far as possible, the poet shall tell his own story of the friendship between himself and his pets, Puss, Tiny, and Bess, as he called them. Cowper was not at all a strong man, and suffered terribly from fits of low spirits, and at these times he could not read, and disliked the company of people, who teased him by giving him advice or asking him questions. It was during one of these seasons of solitude and melancholy that he noticed a poor little hare belonging to the children of one of his neighbors, who, without meaning really to be unkind, had worried the little thing almost to death. Soon they got tired even of playing with it, and the poor hare was in danger of being starved to death, when their father, whose heart was more tender than theirs, proposed that it should be given to their neighbor Mr. Cowper. Now Cowper, besides feeling pity for the poor little creature, felt that he should like to teach and train it, and as just then he was too unhappy to care for his usual occupations, he gladly accepted the present. In a very short time Puss was given 2 companions, Tiny and Bess, and could have dozens more if Cowper had wanted them, for the villagers offered to catch him enough to have filled the whole countryside, if he would only give the order. However, Cowper decided that 3 would be ample for his purposes, and as he wished them to learn nice clean habits, he began with his own hands to build them a house. The house contained a large hall and 3 bedrooms, each with a separate bed, and it was astonishing how soon every hare knew its own bedroom, and how careful he was, for in spite of their names they were all males, never to go into those of his friends. Very soon all 3 made themselves much at home in their comfortable quarters, and Puss, the first comer, would jump on his master's lap and standing up on his hind legs, would bite the hair on his temples. He enjoyed being carried about like a baby, and would even go to sleep in Cowper's arms, which is a very strange thing for a hare to do. Once Puss got ill, and then the poet took care to keep him apart from the other 2, for animals have a horror of their sick companions, and are generally very unkind to them. So he nursed Puss himself and gave him all sorts of herbs and grasses as medicine, and at last Puss began to get better, and took notice of what was going on around him. When he was strong enough to take his first little walk, his pleasure knew no bounds, and in token of his gratitude he licked his master's hand, first back, then front, and then between every finger. As soon as he felt himself quite strong again, he went every now and then eating a leaf or 2 by way of luncheon. If the poet was ever later than usual in leaving the house, Puss would down on his knees and look up into his eyes with a pleading expression, or, if these means failed, he would seize his master's coat between his teeth and pull as hard as he could towards the window. Puss was, perhaps, the pleasantest of all the hares, but Bess, who died young, was the cleverest and most amusing. He had his little tempers. Not feeling very well, he was glad to be petted and made much of, but no sooner had he recovered than he resented any little attentions, and would growl and run away, or even bite if you attempted to touch him. It was impossible really to tame Tiny, but there was something so serious and solemn in all he did that it made you laugh even to watch him. Bess, the third, was very different from the other 2. He did not need taming, for he was tamed from the beginning, as it never entered into his head that anyone could be unkind to him. In many things he had the same tastes as his friends. All 3 loved lettuces, dandelions and oats, and every night little dishes were placed in their bedrooms in case they might feel hungry. One day their master was clearing out a birdcage while his 3 hares were sitting by, and he placed on the floor a pot containing some white sand, such as birds use instead of a carpet. The moment they saw the sand, they made a rush for it and ate it up greedily. Cowper took the hint and always saw after that sand was placed where the hares could get at it. After supper they all spent the evenings in the parlor, and would tumble over together and jump over each other's backs, and see which could spring the furthest, just like a set of kittens. But the cleverest of them all was Bess, and he was also the strongest. Poor Bess. He was the first to die, soon after he was grown up, and Tiny and Puss had to get on as best they could without him, which was not half as much as fun. There was no one now to invent queer games, or to keep the cat in order when it tried to take liberties, and no one, too, to prevent Tiny from bullying Puss, as he was rather fond of doing. Tiny lived to be 9, quite a respectable age for a hare, and died at last from the effects of a fall. Puss went on for another 3 years, and showed no signs of decay, except that he was a little less playful, which was only to be expected. His last act was to make friends with a dog called Marquis, to whom he was introduced by his master. And though the spaniel could not take the place of Puss's early companions, he was better than nobody, and the two got on quite happily together, till the sad day, March 9, 1796, when Puss stretched himself at his master's feet and died peacefully and without pain, aged 11 years and 11 months.